Well, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us for our Increase the Mission effort. We are excited to have you and to have you listen to our compacted presentation of what's going on with Help and Child, what its future looks like, and what our current need is. So during this time, my goal is that you would be encouraged by the work. We're going to share a couple of testimonies, and we hope that those are serving as encouragement for you to learn more about who we are, what we're up to, and we just hope and pray that that would inspire you. We hope and pray that you would take that and be challenged to do something or maybe to do more within the foster care world and adoptive world. So when we were planning for this event and really for this effort this May, there was one significant verse that really spoke to me. Back at the beginning of this year, my husband spoke at our church and he shared from Ephesians 3:20. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see it. So Paul is writing to the church in Ephesus, and he says, "Now to him who is able to do far more abundantly than all we can ask or think, according to the power at work within us, to him be the glory." And I've heard this verse many times, and I'm always think it sounds so sweet and so bold, and I love it. But my husband encouraged me, and really my whole church, to think of it a little bit differently. That oftentimes we approach something we feel inadequate to be participating in or to be doing, whether that's sharing the gospel or stepping forward to be a foster parent or opening your home to serve vulnerable families within your community. We can feel really intimidated and inadequate in our approach of that. And yet we have been promised that through the work of the Holy Spirit in our lives, that more than we could ask or think will be done, right? That because we have this power working within us, even in moments where we feel completely inadequate, by stepping forward and saying yes and fulfilling God's will, we can see amazing things happen. And it really inspired me in that moment. It made me reflect back to when we first said yes to opening our home, but even in reflection of who Help One Child is today. I know that Mark and Joanne Morris, when they launched Help One Child back in 1993, there's no way they could have anticipated what it would become today. Right? They knew that there were families in need, including their own, to be supported by local churches and their Christian community. And so they founded Help One Child in 1993. And yet today, like last fiscal year, we served over 3,500 children around the Bay Area. And they couldn't have anticipated that. We partner with over 75 churches to get that work done. But there's a couple of additional numbers that I think are kind of fun, so I'm going to spout them out. But one program in particular that we'll talk a little bit about tonight is Care Portal. And through just this one program that we launched a couple years ago, 2 years ago, we've been able to see over 800 children served, which is just incredible, especially because those are 800 kids that we wouldn't have a touch point with otherwise. We were introduced to those children by their social worker. Many of those families were still intact, still a biological family intact, being served by the county, hoping that they'll be able to remain together, right? That their children won't go into foster care. So I'd like to take a minute and show a video. I've recently been able to put this video together. It's meant to serve as kind of an introduction to Help One Child. And so maybe today you are just learning about us, or maybe there's just still some confusion about who we are and what we do. So hang on tight, let me get that. Help One Child was founded in 1993. And since that time, we have been strengthening families impacted by foster care and adoption. We do this by partnering with local churches and collaborating with social service agencies and community-based organizations. Our approach is to not only support the child itself, but to holistically support the entire family. A unique aspect of Help One Child is that we serve the full breadth of child welfare services. That means from prevention, serving family maintenance and family preservation, through youth transitioning out of care and emancipating, adoption, as well as biological families that are reunifying after their children have been in foster care for a period of time. We offer these families our support services based on 3 pillars. The first is education. We know that educating the caregivers about trauma, attachment, and adoption can have a lasting imprint. The second pillar is community and connection. We all know the pain of isolation, and so offering families and children an opportunity to connect with others who have had shared life experience is really powerful. And lastly, resources. We know sometimes all that is needed is a tangible resource, whether that's for a youth that's becoming independent for the first time, needing pots and pans and a bed, or for that family that's reuniting and they need a car seat and a crib to safely welcome home their child. We want to make sure that families are wrapped around and supported in all aspects. A dear friend of Help One Child coined a phrase a few years ago, and that foster care is a community-wide crisis, requiring a community-wide response. And we believe that to be true. And we hope that you'll take the next step to get engaged with this population at any level. Thank you. Well, thank you. I hope that that does serve you well. Please, you'll find it on our website. We're just about to have a large overhaul of that website. So check back in the coming weeks, if not a month. But you'll be able to find that on our YouTube channel and be able to share with people who maybe don't know Help One Child. Maybe that's a foster family in your church or an adoptive family you've just come to know, or maybe it's a fellow donor or a fellow kind of village member is what we often refer to our community and network of friends who want to support these vulnerable families. So regardless, I hope that it's helpful. One thing that I think is unique about Help One Child is our commitment to partner with churches. In 1993, when the Morrises founded Help One Child, there were not other organizations like us. There were actually 2, to be perfectly honest. There was one in Texas and one in LA. And it's interesting, even as the 90s progressed and there might have been a couple more that popped up nationally, really wasn't until 2010 to 2015 that we started seeing kind of this effort grow, where there are now nationally lots of ministries. Bridge ministries is often what they're referred to, similar to Help One Child. But what is unique is that as we trace back to who we were at our launch, we were committed to partnering with churches. Mark and Joanne wanted to found a Christian organization motivated by its Christian faith, and our leadership still represents that today. And some of these other ministries that did exist in the 90s, as we look back and see how they've evolved over the years, there's this fork in the road that we've all hit. And there's a decision that has to be made. You can either choose to develop a staff and a team of behavioral therapists or paid professionals who are serving these children and families. Or you can continue to commit to the church, recognizing that they will be lay individuals needing to be equipped so that they can serve these families, but clearly with some limitations. And that has been where Help One Child's heart is. We want to continue to see the church be the solution. We believe that we've been called. We believe that the Bible calls us as Christians and believers to step forward and love the vulnerable in our community. And so we go around equipping members of churches and compassionate folks to just have basic foundational understanding of what trauma can do to a child as they're developing, or even what chronic trauma can do to an adult, especially as we wrap around some of these biological families. In fact, I mentioned Care Portal earlier and how many children we've been able to serve, but through that very program, we've been introduced to over 700 church responders. And lots of those volunteers are people that we had no engagement with prior to Care Portal. And so we love seeing the fruit of the different programs that we run, especially in these recent years as we've brought on a couple of new ones. And so again, this idea that 700 people have now been equipped to understand how to engage with vulnerable populations and be stretched, right? As their understanding of trauma, their understanding of neglect and abuse and what goes on within children who are exposed to foster care, um, but also their parents again and the foster parents. But as their understanding grows, we believe their compassion grows and often their action grows. And so I want to take a minute and have you listen to one of the pastors that we partner with. And so hold on just a second.
Hello, my name is Simon, and I am one of the pastors at Christ Central Presbyterian Church in Daly City. I wanted to share our church's involvement and journey with regards to foster care. One of my responsibilities at our church is local outreach, and so I wanted to know what we could do better. This led to one of our members coming up to me and suggesting if we can get involved in foster care. I told that person, sure, we can try. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, there's no way. Our church is too small. We have limited resources. Plus, we live in the Bay Area. Everyone is busy all the time. But I wanted to at least try. And so I called up a few foster care organizations, and they all told me the same thing. They wanted us to get families to commit to becoming foster parents. I know our church. I knew this was not going to happen. So I told them, I don't want to waste your time. We have to pass it this time. While all this was going on, we actually had a member get more involved in foster care. He started attending information sessions. He even participated in a summer camp. And he eventually introduced us to his organization. That organization was Help One Child. What made Help One Child so special and unique was that we could get involved without making this huge commitment, which is exactly what we needed. We started out small. We hosted a parents' night out. Then we got involved with their tour drive at Christmas. And then we got integrated into their care portal system. And then the unthinkable happened. One of our families decided to commit to become foster parents. Looking back, I think my assessment was correct. On paper, we were too small. We were too busy. We were not ready. And yet, our church is involved. We love our partnership with Help One Child. And we've had a foster child in our community. For me, it's so clear. That's not us, but that's God working through us. My encouragement for anyone listening is simply this. There are so many reasons not to get involved with foster care. But there's only one reason for why you should. One reason that matters more than anything else. Know that the God who worked through us can also work through you. And so get involved. Even if it may be really small. Know that God can use that to do something big, to do something lasting, to do something good.
Well, we just continue to be so encouraged by a partnership with CCPC and Simon and the volunteer teams there and this family that stepped up. And it is an incredible testimony to how often we can see our shortcomings, we can see our inabilities, we can see our limitations, and yet God, right? It's one of my favorite aspects of the Bible and reading God's word. It's but God is at work. And so I love Simon's testimony and just seeing his church really now have this culture that is aware of foster care, that is attentive to it, that is engaged and involved at various levels. And let me just share with you what a privilege it is that Help One Child gets to be a part of that. Right, that we get to provide those resources and those opportunities that enabled folks to say yes, that enabled Daniel, their original volunteer who made the introduction, to say yes to volunteering once a month at our support groups to provide childcare for the families that needed that community. And then later we talked him into camp, as was mentioned, and he's been a couple of times now. And then he went back to Simon, and they have really wrapped around so many of our families and now serving folks in their own community by using Care Portal. It's such a gift and an honor to be a part of that through Help One Child. I want to see if I can show you an image, so bear with me just a second here. Let's see. Will it let me? Here's the fun part about Zoom and these things. Let's see, sorry. Okay. So as mentioned, we've got 75 church partners in our fiscal year 2021. And this year alone, we've onboarded another 10 churches and are currently talking to about a half a dozen more that we're hoping we can get involved in Help One Child here by the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30. But let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. I think what is an interesting thing is on average, there's about 5,000 children impacted by foster care in the Bay Area. And what we also see is that there are 3,500 churches in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so we've made it our goal, and there's sort of a national campaign going on as well to see that there is now more than enough. And we believe that in order to make that happen, we'll need to partner with 10% of churches so that we can have more than enough support for the entire breadth of child welfare services. So prevention, transitional age youth, right? Youth that are emancipating, those adoptive families, the foster families, the kinship families, the full spectrum of care. And so we need your help. We always are looking for introductions to new churches or for champions to step up within their church. Maybe they already partner with us to host a donation drive or to host a support group, but we're always looking for additional ways to serve families and children in need. So I want to take another minute and share another beautiful video with you. It's about one of our families that we have served, an adoptive mother, and I'm going to just let you watch it because she does a great job of telling her own story.
When I was a little girl, I had a mother that always had a heart for abused children, and I thought when I grew up I would also want to help, and I had the romantic idea that I would take on lots of children. At least 4 was my goal. That was my idea when I grew up. My name is Selma, and I have 5 children. My husband had a daughter, I have a son. We got married and we both had 2 children, a boy and a girl, and later we adopted Christian. There was a family member that needed to be adopted because he was put in the foster care system. So another family member stepped up to the plate to try to adopt him. And after 2 days of having him, this family member ended up calling me, letting me know that they were done. It was too hard. And I was devastated. And I mentioned, I wish I could have done this. So the social worker called me a few days later and had heard that I might be interested in having the child live with us. All the details worked out, and we got him a week later. After 2 days, I was thinking, this doesn't work for our family. It was very demanding. It was hard. It was nothing that I thought it was, because I really had the romantic idea of adoption. So I reached out to family or friends, and they would say, oh, you just need to love him more. And that struck my heart more than anything, because of course I want to love this child, but I had nothing left to give. I became depressed and I isolated myself. I became a prisoner in my own home because I kept pushing him away. And I also became physically sick. So my husband did tell me, he goes, I know that you will stick it out with this child, but if we don't get help, it's not going to work. Our family is getting destroyed. And so was our marriage. Then God stepped in Within 1 week, I got a flyer from one of my Bible study leaders. I got a flyer from one of my husband's clients, and I got a flyer from one of my daycare parents, and it was all the same flyer from Help One Child. So we went, and there were about 20 couples all sitting around a big table, and they all shared their story of their sweet children that they adopted, and then they got to me, and I said, well, I have a 5-year-old child, and I can't stand him. And the leader actually laughed and said, thank you for sharing, because that's why we have Help One Child. Help One Child just taught me about the trauma these kids feel. Honestly, I had no idea that they would view the world the way they do because they've been so hurt they don't trust adults. And we have to reteach ourselves to teach him, we're the adult and you'll be safe with us. Because it's a Christian organization, I was prayed for, and we encouraged each other that God was for us and for these kids. They were also helping us as parents. They were there for me to help me be that parent, because you just feel like such a failure. And we were all in the same boat to encourage each other and to hang in there. Anytime I meet anyone who has an adoptive child or foster care child, I would love to encourage you to join Help One Child, because it's been such a huge help in my life that God has given me, and I know it's there for all of you out there. It is so encouraging. You can't do it alone. It wasn't meant for us to do alone. We need each other. We need God, and Help One Child has made that possible. And it changed our lives. It was a saving grace that God used, and I'm so thankful. My child's now 21, and he's thriving, and I'm really proud of him. And I can say I love him.
Well, we're so grateful that Selma would take the time and share her story and how she was introduced to Help One Child in her greatest moment of need, and how through the work of Help One Child and finding community and education at that support group, they were equipped with the tools they needed to continue to say yes, to continue to reshape how they were parenting and how they could see what their child actually needed, and support him in his permanency within their family. What a beautiful thing that is, and just what a gift it is to represent Help One Child, to participate on the staff, and just support its leadership. And so I hope that you were blessed by hearing from Selma. I've got just a couple more slides I want to show you, and let's see here if I can figure it all out. Well, a couple days ago, I had the opportunity to do a grant presentation, and was asked a lot of questions. Some of them were challenging than others, but one of the questions that was asked was, why do you feel this need to continue to grow and expand? And this was really in reference to our network of families and our network of churches, not necessarily geographically. We're pretty committed to the Bay Area. But this came to mind. Many of you probably don't know this, but 50% of all children in foster care come from 5% of the counties in the United States. And when you look at the map nationally, California has been hit hard. But even the Bay Area, we represent 9 counties, and 6 of which fall within that 5%, right? So Alameda, Contra Costa, San Francisco, Santa Clara, Solano, and Sonoma County. And so we have an overabundance of children in care, in foster care. And that means there are so many Selmas out there. There are so many families needing our support and needing our wraparound services, our community, our education, the resources. There's a big trend right now, and it's a good one, but to place children in kinship placements, right? So their grandmas, their aunties, their uncles, the neighbor, the coach, someone they're familiar with is able to welcome them into their home for this season while they're in foster care. But the thing is that those folks, those family members stepping forward are ill-equipped often with resources. They may not have the means to go out and purchase the bunk beds or the dressers to make this placement happen. to purchase the clothes because we don't have access to where their other clothing was, to welcome this child in kind of a seamless transition. And that's something that we're able to do through the work of Care Portal and Help One Child services beyond. And so here's what it's going to take. Here's what it's going to take for Help One Child to be able to expand its reach around the Bay Area, meeting more families and serving them in significant and impactful ways. We're going to need 200 people at $20 a month, 100 people at $50 a month, 50 people at $100 a month, and 25 people at $200 per month. And really what that will enable us to do is to run our full breadth of programming in all 9 Bay Area counties. And so we hope that you really will prayerful consider becoming a financial partner, or maybe increasing the amount that you already are committed to giving. And then we would love introductions to people in your network. If you would share that opening video or Selma's video or Simon's video, whatever spoke to you, share the ministry of Help One Child to your network so that we can continue to grow and expand and serve these families in significant ways. I just want to thank you. We know that May is Foster Care Awareness Month, and so there's a heightened sort of attention given to it this month, and we never want to miss that opportunity to share our current needs and share what we've been able to accomplish. And so thank you for taking the time. I just want to acknowledge 2 people that we lost this year that we are paying tribute to. Miss Norberta Dominguez from Santa Clara County was just a beautiful woman who cared for a lot of foster children through her days here on this earth. And Sweet Mateo Deal is such an empathetic, caring young boy who we got to know through camp primarily, and his parents are grieving the loss of his life, and it just, again, a testament to just the impacts of early childhood trauma and how sometimes that can be overwhelming for a child. And so we hope that you would maybe consider even making a donation in their honor and in tribute to them. Thank you again for your time.